Exactly. And that's
Joel, the scariest thing about your election prediction, mate, is the 3 years where we're going to have a coalition Labor-Green government and the Greens and the Teals are actually going to have power. That scares the crap out of me.
You said that they need 19 seats.
They need to find 19 seats on that map, yeah.
Now, you're saying that they can't. How many seats do you think they could? Or do you think they're going to lose seats?
No, they can do it. But the problem is...
the trajectory they're currently going.
Let me put it to you this way, because we've just covered a US election and everyone's an expert the week or two after the US election, all right? There are 7 swing states. Now, do you remember when RFK pulled his name off the swing states?
Virginia was still a swing state. I only got it wrong by 1.5%. I'm just going to put that out there.
But let me put this out for a second. There were 7 swing states where it's like, okay, Republicans and Democrats, this is where the fight's going to happen. The problem is, in Australia, those swing seats that the Republicans, the Conservatives here, the Liberals are looking at, are the wrong seats. They're looking at safe Labor seats. They need to be looking, then they shouldn't be looking at the 2022 election results. They should be looking at the referendum results, for F's sake. And that's what frustrates me about these guys. It's like, how could you not see that?
Joel, when you do look at that, what do you see? Is it like that donut theory that, the outer suburbs, this is
I'll show you.
Tradie, working class
if you look at this, and again, this is why I'm trying to get these maps to as many people as possible. So email me at joel@thearcpodcast.com. But what it shows is these seats here, and it's in better graphics when you buy it, obviously. It's really good. It's 60% yes. It's 60% yes. It's 60% yes on the referendum vote. But when you look at the Western Sydney suburbs, it's like 65% no. But the reason why the Liberals aren't looking at these seats is all they see is safe Labor seats. It's the same thing with Melbourne. In Melbourne, all of these seats, they all voted no, and safely no. But they're not. The Conservatives aren't looking at these seats. They're looking at Kooyong, which voted safely yes. They're looking at Goldstein, which and this is the problem. And this is why I'm getting so frustrated, because guys, I'm not in the establishment. If you haven't worked it out, I'm not in the establishment. I'm a Middle Eastern guy. I'm sorry, I've got to say it. I'm a Middle Eastern guy. I didn't grow up in a political family, but I know patterns. I know politics. I've seen it in the UK, in Canada, in New Zealand, in bloody South Africa. I know patterns. I know elections. And I'm telling you now, the Conservatives, all the millions of dollars, the $20+ million of dollars they're putting into the inner city seats, they're going to lose them. These are the areas that voted yes to the voice. They're not putting the money in the Western Sydney seats. And by the way, if I was wrong about this, then you have to answer this question. Why is it that Dai Lee won this seat, which was Western Sydney, and it was 65% Labor, and it was a seat that voted no? How is it that she took it off the Labor incumbent? And it wasn't just because Frank Carbone supported her and the councillors supported her. It's because the people in that area were conservative naturally. But the problem was the Liberal Party aren't running conservative campaigns.
So not only are they not standing up for their values, but they're also strategically incompetent as well.
That's right.
Well, a big question. So firstly, just because something is a strong Labor seat, like, let's be honest, right? The Teals, forget whether you agree or don't agree with them, they didn't just go after some marginal Liberal seats. They went after the bluest of blue ribbon seats. They went after McKellar, Bronwyn Bishop's old area, who still voted for a Liberal after Choppergate, right? They went after Warringah, Tony Abbott. They went after all of the die-hard Liberal areas. Why don't the Liberals find some testicles and go after some of the Labor seats? They absolutely should, for exactly the reasons that you've said. But here's a question that I've got for you, if you'd like to speculate on it. You've got a very wide audience. I'm sure that people at Sky News watch this show from time to time. I'm sure all the time, probably. I'm sure that the IPA watches this. I'm sure that many of the other conservative think tanks watch this sort of show. They've heard you talk about this. Why do you think that they're not responding and saying, actually, that's a really good idea, let's go and put the money there?
You've got to be very specific. Let's talk about the Liberal Party, because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are the alternative government. The problem with the Liberal Party is you've got 3 factions, and let's just use these people as symbols for the factions. You've got Peter Dutton, you've got Malcolm Turnbull, and you've got Scott Morrison. These are the 3 different factions. Malcolm Turnbull's the far left, Peter Dutton's the leader of the far right, and you've got Scott Morrison, which is sort of the moderate, middle, Alex Hawke sort of group. The problem is the Conservatives don't have the majority of the numbers within the Liberal Party, in the Parliamentary Party, and holding the halls of power. They have more like 30 to 40% of the numbers in the party. You've got a bunch of moderates in the sort of middle. They call themselves moderates, but they control about 30%, and then you've got the lefties, which control about 30%. The problem is when it comes to writing policy, the Conservatives aren't powerful enough. Not enough people have joined the Liberal Party to vote within the party to shift the policy in a certain direction. That's why when Dan Andrews won in Victoria, the reason why he won is because the Liberals said, we want to do, for example, a 75% net zero on climate change. We want 75% net zero. That was higher than the federal Labor Party's net zero target. Of course, people aren't going to vote for that. Of course, they're going to vote for the actual Labor Party, not Labor Light.
Insanity.
That you need a difference. However, when they get a clear proposal between yes and no on the voice, Victoria, socialist Victoria, voted 55 to 60% no, because a lot of people didn't vote because they were disillusioned after the Victorian election.
The Liberal Party is not even a centre-right party now. I believe the Liberal Party is a centre-to-centre-left party, and the Labor Party is a centre-left to far-left party.
I'm with you.
And Australia doesn't have a centre-right party, because I don't even think it's a question of being conservative or socially conservative. It's being classically liberal or libertarian as well. There's nobody representing that group of Australians or leading that group of Australians. And educating and articulating things in a way that group of Australians can go, okay, I can get behind this. There's no brand distinction or differentiation. If there's no brand distinction or differentiation, why change product?
Exactly.
Stick with the product you know.
Three fingers. Yep. You called Peter Dutton far right.
Yeah.
Now, can we talk about how not far right Peter Dutton is?
No, but this is the thing.
He's centre right, but in the Liberal Party, that is the far right.
But the idea, I mean, he's not even a classical liberal.
In terms of seniority.
Yes, I get that.
If you go back to the, and this is a great way to go back to it to understand the numbers, if you go back to when they were trying to get rid of Malcolm Turnbull, and they did, you had Dutton, you had ScoMo, and you had Malcolm Turnbull. Now, ScoMo won that because he split the vote. Once you remove Turnbull. But Dutton is the technical leader of the right, and we all know he's not. Now, does he every now and then, does he come out and say some great conservative stuff? Absolutely.
Pre-scripted.
Pre-scripted, but no, look, sometimes it's off the cuff. I mean, that time he went after that ABC journalist in Alice Springs and lambasted them about, why are you basically being an apologist for the pedophiles out here? That was brilliant, and it was off the cuff. He has it within his bones, but it is not. I don't know who's consulting for him, but they're saying be moderate, be normal. If you want to win an election, you can't be like Pauline. You've got to be a bit more down the middle. This is wrong. We need authenticity. Not be bombastic.
Authenticity and values.
Exactly, and that's what John Roscombe says in his article.
But this is where it also comes down to an issue of money, and I'm directing this at Damien, but it should be directed at everybody. But I don't want to sort of just keep beating the same point. If you're a business person and you're running a medium to large business, not a small business, not the mum and dad tuck shop down the road or Pauline Hanson's, fish and chip shop, but you're a bit bigger, why would you bother putting your money behind the Liberal Party? Not because you support the Labor Party, but because your money's going to have more bang for your buck with the Labor Party, because you can go to them and you can ask for special favours, you can ask for special treatment, you can ask for regulations that are going to ultimately help you. Whereas the Liberal Party is going to be too bloody polite, they're going to be too moderate, and they don't want to be seen as protecting business at the cost of the workers. So what are you going to do? You're going to naturally go to the Labor Party because the Labor Party is more likely to help you. This is the massive problem that I've observed all over the world, is that there's a question between morally what should be right and fair, which most of us would agree is freedom for more people. And there's another question about how do I enrich myself and how do I make the most amount of money as I possibly can. Now, I personally, as an individual, I can't do it. I cannot get into bed with left-leaning parties for multiple reasons that I've expressed on previous shows. Not saying I never would, but certainly not on a moral level. But from the perspective of how do you get the best bang for your buck if you're going to give money to a political party, who are you going to hand that money to?
Yeah.
You're going to hand it to the party that's actually able to help you. And the party that's actually able to help you is the party that's trying to advocate for positions that potentially would hurt you.
Yeah.
It just follow the money. That's why they do it.
Absolutely. And look, I guys, I look at these things and I see these intractable problems that can be resolved, but we're running out of time. And it's like, okay, I'm assuming these aren't going to be resolved. I'm not seeing, I've got my ear to the pavement. I know what's going on in every state with the Liberal Party, with the minor parties. I can see where things are tracking. And I'm like, okay, this is the conclusion I've come to. And so I do see a silver lining. Everything is pointing to mid to late 2028 for a lot of these things. So what I'm going to do between now and then is build as much infrastructure as possible so that when we get to that point, whatever the political vehicle is, whether it's a fusion of the remaining remnants of the Liberal Party, people like Nick Goiran in WA and Alex Antic in South Australia that have done a very good job in filling the Liberal Party with true Menzies conservatives, and fusing that with some kind of new minor party, I don't know, but I will be throwing my effort behind whatever that is. And that's the silver lining coming down the pipeline.
And also, one thing, another point of hope, is that the narrative is going to be breaking hard. You know, if RFK Jr. gets in charge of the HHS, and the CDC director changes, and a lot of things get exposed, that will have downstream effects, narrative breaking effects that they won't be able to hide from here. And so, you know, there will be an acceleration of more investigations, more openness, hopefully some outrage that might accelerate the timeline of awakening, of people coming to realize just how badly we've been sold out, and that will actually might be what helps you build your network.
Well, and then look, that's the thing. One thing I know for certain is a lot of people are like, okay, Joel, who's the Nigel Farage, who's the Trump of Australia? I don't know. I can tell you one thing. It's not me, and the person that it is, it's not on the scene right now, because I'm just not seeing what it's meant to be. I have some signs of what the person might be like, but one thing I'm dead certain about is you can't fatten the pig on market day. We've got a lot of building to do as a movement. I will be throwing my energy behind that because I know where the weaknesses are. There's 24 projects I've put together that will plug those holes. If Nigel Farage had these 24 projects, he would have won the UK election. That's how certain. That's
my big concern for Australia, and I certainly am full of hope and optimism for this country, but my big concern is what's happening in the other country that I'm a citizen of. We have now seen the UK, in my opinion, completely devolve under Keir Starmer's prime ministership.
Dark times.
Now, I had predicted that the Labor Party was going to win that last election, and I actually said, against my own party, the Tories, that the Tories deserved to lose it because they had done such an abysmal job. That gave the Labor Party the opportunity to do so much good. And what have they done? There are reports, which I don't know if they're true. They sound like they're a little bit overblown, but there are reports that they've tried to make room in prisons for people that have put memes up online. Now, that sounds like it's a bit more extreme than what the reality would be, but that's not the point. That's what the reports are. We're seeing people like Tony Robbins, what's his name? Tony Robinson.
Tommy Robinson, yeah.
Having rallies, and he's being attacked by the police and law enforcement, all that sort of stuff. You don't want that. You don't want to have that sort of civil unrest that's happening in the UK. And now the latest thing, you got the farmers that are protesting right there in Westminster, from what I'm seeing on the news, because of what they're calling the tractor tax or the inheritance tax. Now, I've only had a precursory look at this, but what they're talking about is having a 20% tax on the value of the farmland, which they're going to spread out over 10 years. Now, I think the reason why they're saying that is because then it's only 2% a year for 10 years. It doesn't sound so bad. But, farms don't make money every single year. We know that here in Australia, the way that we tax farms is a bit different. So we're seeing all of these sorts of issues that are occurring. But yet the UK has elected the Labor Party knowing that this was the sort of stuff that they were talking about. And Jeremy Corbyn was talking about a 4-day work week and free internet for everybody.
Yeah, full-blown left. I mean, it's communist.
Exactly.
It's Stalin-esque sort of, land taxing.
So my question for Australia, Damien, is: do we need Like, is it going to require Australia to get as bad as that before we respond? Look at the Aboriginal Cultural Heritage laws in Western Australia.
Yes.
Okay? They've got these laws that have terrified the farmers. The farmers have absolutely no idea what they're supposed to do. They're saying, I get phone calls, and I'm certainly no expert in the law or in cultural heritage laws, from people that say, oh, look, my fence blew down. Am I allowed to build a new fence? And I'll go, what are you asking me for? I don't know. Well, can you ask one of your lawyers? And then I pass them on to my lawyers, and my lawyers go, we don't know. Right? This is the sort of damage that's being done. Even if the laws don't require them not to put up the new fence or not to need to go and get the cultural heritage, sign off or whatever, the issue is that they're terrified that they could do something wrong and that they could end up in all sorts of trouble. Who was it that just said before about a $1.5 million fine for selling vapes in Australia? We're seeing that the hand of government and the force of government is so heavy-handed that people are terrified.
Uncertainty destroys businesses.
Absolutely.
Business planning.
Can I just say, let's remember
in Australia? Do we need Australia to be as dysfunctional as the US has been in recent history, as the UK is becoming, as much of Europe is becoming, before Australians will stand up and say, yes, I've had enough?
Meetings will continue until enlightenment occurs.
Now, look, that is the situation, and this is the thing. Remember, look at what the US just did. History doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. There are Elon Musks in Australia. There are Tulsi Gabbards in Australia. There are Patrick Bet-Davids in Australia. There are people that there's going to be a great realignment. There's a lot of our best players that are actually sitting on the bench. I meet them all the time, and when I see that, things can always get worse. I'm sure people are writing in the comments now, Joel, things are already bad.
I'm not very optimistic, I got to say. I do worry that people think they've got to get really bad before people will wake up. And I say, go back to that spending 2 hours in the polling booth. I mean, I went and handed out how to vote cards, and it's like, it was for a Libertarian Party candidate, and I was saying something fresh, something new, just to get people to take the brochure and read it, right? Something fresh, something new? Nah. Don't want something fresh, something just like the same old crap. Thanks. It's all good.
It'll come eventually.
Yeah, I hope so. I'm just feeling like the average Australian doesn't get, just like probably every other country, that people don't get economics. They don't get the sort of simple